In the previous two lessons, we have created a Firebase database, populated some records of movie reviews inside that database in the cloud, and then created an app that reads that data and presents our movie reviews in card views within a RecyclerView. And we made it in the last lesson so we could click on one of these and get the larger review in a dialog box, since our cards only show the first 100 characters. What we want to do now in our app is have the ability to add a review and add that to our cloud database with Firebase and update the RecyclerView. So let's get started. I'll close my emulator. Back to our full screen. First thing we're going to do is create another layout. I'm going to right click, choose new, layout resource file. I'm going to call this one add review, with an underscore between add and review. I'm going to use a constraint layout, so we'll just click OK. What we're going to do in this layout is have some edit text views where the user can enter the title, the review, and the reviewer's name, and then we'll do some spinners for the genre and the rating, so we make sure that those are consistent. Once again, I'm going to pause the video, create my layout, and then come back and show you what was done, and you can duplicate that. Here then is my layout. I've got a text view which has the title of Add Movie, and I made that 28 SP in text size, made it bold, centered it. I've got another text view here inside of a horizontal linear layout with just the title as text, and then an edit text view called ET title. That's its ID, and that's where we'll type in the movie title, and I put a hint there of movie title. Then I've got a text view that just says genre, and below that is a spinner named spinner genre, and we'll set that up in a minute. And then another text view with rating, and a spinner called spinner rating. Text view label, provide your review, and then I have a scroll view that I've named SV review. I set the layout height just kind of randomly at 271, and the width here probably should be match constraints. And then below that is another text view, just the label of review, and then an edit text for the name. And on this one, I'm going to get rid of the text, but let's put in a hint. Of reviewer name. And then finally I have two buttons, one that is labeled return, and it's named BTN return. Here I use the string resource of go back, and the submit uses a string resource of submit, and it's named a BTN submit. You notice I've got a couple little warnings here. So some of my labels, I don't have these set up as resource strings, and you probably should go ahead and do that. Let's take a look at the code, and you can use this then as you're looking at your settings versus mine. So again, we have our constraint layout, and then the order, of course, is not all that important, but here's the button for return, the linear layout with the text view and the edit text, the scroll view. The scroll view contains a multi-line edit text named ET review. Here's our spinner for the rating and our spinner for the genre, and we'll populate these in code. Text view for our rating and genre labels. The text view for the label of provide your review. This is our title text view that says add movie, and here I use the string resource of add. We've already added that into our string resources. Our submit button with an on-click event of submit my review. So I have to build out that method. Our text view for the reviewer label, and the edit text of the reviewer name. Back up at the top, that very first button, we have an on-click of return to main. So we'll create the return domain, and we'll create the submit my review. So I'm going to go to my main activity KT file, and before I forget to do those, let's just add a function for submit my review. It's going to accept a view parameter, and I'll just copy and paste that, and this one will be returned to main. And we'll add the code for those a little bit later. In our activity main XML file, we had this add movie button, and it has an on click of go add review, so I also need to create that. Here then is the code for the go add review. I'm going to switch to my add review layout, and then I set up 3 variables for the title, the review, and the reviewer as edit text, so ET title. We're finding those views by ID. And then I've got 2 calls to set up the genre spinner and set up the rotation spinner. We'll create those in just a minute. But I need to go back and add these 3 as class level variables. So I'm going to scroll up to the top. So let me add some variables for those edit text views as well as our spinners. So there's my variables for the edit text, and 2 variables that we're going to use for our in setting up our spinners for the string arrays. I'm going to come back down. So we need now our setup genre spinner and setup rating spinner stubs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, paste. We'll set this one as setup genre spinner. I'm not going to pass it anything. Copy that, paste, and this will be setup rating spinner. Let me pause the video here, and I'll enter my code and come back and explain it. So I forgot to add 2 more class level variables, and it's for the spinner genre and spinner rating as spinners. So I added those to the top of my code. Let's go back down to our setup genre spinner. And so I created a reference to it by finding the ID. And then I set the variable of genres to that string array that we created of the different genres here in our strings resource file. And that's going to give us our drop-down list. I set the background color to green just in doing some testing. I'm going to actually get rid of that. It's not necessary. You can change it to the color if you want. And then set the selection to 0, which would be our very first item in the list. And then I created an on item selected listener with a lambda expression, and we're going to get the position that was selected in the spinner, and then set submit genre to wherever that position is. I also had a toast in here where I was doing some testing. Again, you could get rid of that. Then there's if nothing is selected, there's an override function that has to be implemented, and I just simply do nothing. So we're going to do the same thing for the rating spinner. Here then is the code for my setup rating spinner. Really no different from the setup genre spinner. One change I did make though, if you notice up here, we created our adapter from the resource of our string resource with genres. I did a little bit differently here. I created an array called ratings, and I then used that in setting up the adapter. So there's my ratings variable. So 2 different ways you can do this. One using string resources, one just using a string array. Set up my adapter, set the selection to 0, create the on item selected listener, and then submit rating will equal the array value at the position that was selected. So that's our two spinners. What I need to do now is code those two buttons for submit my review and return to main. We'll do the return to main one first since it's much simpler. And my code here is simply to set the content to activity main. And then I want to tell our RecyclerView adapter that the data set has changed, and that'll force it to add in any movies we created while we were on this screen. The submit my review is where we're going to add and write the data to our Firebase cloud. Again, I'm going to pause the video and walk you through my code. So here then is the code for submit my review. I'm going to create references to the title of the review and the reviewer as far as the text in those edit text widgets. And then we'll create a hash map of our submitted values for title, genre, review, rating, and reviewer from those variables, as well as the submit genre and submit rating that we're getting from the spinners. And that hash map of our data constant is what we're going to pass to Firebase. Here's where we're going to connect to our movie reviews, and as you recall, I actually had a space in movie reviews. I need to add that in. We're going to call the .add method, pass it data. If successful, I'm going to add a reference into my logcat just for testing purposes, and then we'll create a little toast message that it was saved. I also want to add it to my movies list. So we're going to pass those values, creating a new movie review item in our movies list. We're going to sort that movies list by title. And then I'm going to clear out ET title, ET review. I'm going to leave the reviewer, since we might be using the same name. And then I'm going to set the focus back up at the title. And then we'll tell the RecyclerView adapter that we've modified the data. If something went wrong in writing to the Firebase, then we'll add that to our logcat and create a toast that says something went wrong. So I've got a little problem here with the username. That should be submit reviewer. And you may recall that in the original demo of this, back on that first video, I had a separate dialog that came up and had the person enter the reviewer's name. I changed that here to include it on this screen, realizing that there may be times when you might want to change that reviewer name. All right, let's test this. So there are existing 3 movies. I'm going to click Add Movie. My movie title is going to be Rear Window. The genre is going to be Mystery. There's our spinner. In 1954, they didn't have the rating system, so it's unrated. I'll provide my review. I'm going to get rid of the keyboard here. So there then is my review. I'm going to add my reviewer name. And I'll click the submit button. So I'm told that the document was written. And now if we return to our main screen, our movies didn't show back up. So I'm going to refresh though, and we'll fix that. I'm going to refresh and see if it's there in the list. And there it is. There's Rear Window. I can see the list. Now let's fix it so that it does, when we return, we do see the list of movies. So I think what's happening is I'm coming back to my activity main layout, and it's simply not updating the RecyclerView. And I'm just going to force the issue. I'm going to come back up to the code we had where we were identifying the RV movies, the adapter, and the layout. I'm just going to copy that. And we'll come back down here and add that back in. And actually, I've already notified the data set has changed. So I don't think we need that. I'm going to go ahead and comment it out and see if it works without it. If it doesn't, I'll come back and add it. So let's now try this again. couple of records read from the cloud. I'm going to click Add Movie. And so now if I return, my movies are there. So it is now updating the RecyclerView. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you just jumped into this video, you can see all the videos from the Android App Development Cohort playlist by clicking on the image in the lower right. And if you'd like to be alerted to future videos that I create, you can click my picture up in the top right and subscribe to the channel.